Hi Mario, how are you? Hi Syria. How are things?
It's great. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what questions do we have today from our viewers?
Absolutely. So this first question is from Anonymous. They were actually from one of our recent events. They asked, in the EB1A petition process, does the USCIS first evaluate whether the petitioner meets at least three regulatory criteria before assessing the totality of evidence for sustained a claim, or is the concept of sustained impact considered each individual criterion from the outset?
It's a very, very brilliant question, actually. You see, what happens is we are talking about an event wherein we had a former USCIS officer talking about EB1A and about the next league program, how USCIS views at it. So, it's wonderful, actually. Prima facie, I think the law, I mean, they have a two-step process, which they call it a Kazarian. After the case law of Kazarian, it comes up here. Essentially what is happening is that they look at the fulfillment of the criteria, and then they go back to the criteria and each element of the criteria, and then they see that what exactly, whether the US interest, or what does the totality of evidence speak about. That's how it is. So answering a question in a very specific manner, does the first USCIS first evaluate whether the petitioner meets at least three? Answer to that is an affirmative yes. The concept of sustained impact is not a sustained impact, it's totality. I think there's a verbatim here, but we always in the program tell people that please try to match, in every activity, don't give some mundane activities or some basic initiative. Let's say, for example, you would have done judging in your organization. Don't use that as a very, it's not a very strong criteria for judging in that sense, because there you cannot prove any sustained impact. If you have been doing, if you created some kind of a good framework for judging which has been adopted across the organization or even outside the organization, that may make sense. If it has been part of your regular job, this would not make sense. So while the fulfillment of criteria is a basic requirement, we always tell people in the program that what you need to do is you have your list down all, 20, 30 of your things, that items that you would have feel that they have impacted, have a very powerful impact, and use the criteria as a lens to kind of look at them. How would you look at it, and then arrive at a conclusion? So final merit determination is like a conclusion, actually. It's like a summary of what all in totality, what all they speak together, rather than looking at piecemeal in isolation where people are trying to fit into the criteria. And I think that way this process serves the purpose actually here. So concept of sustained impact, I would not use the word sustained impact, it's about totality actually here. uh, but yes, they would definitely, at the second step, they would combine the two things. So you did a judging in a particular way for which you got an award. You did an original contribution for which you were invited for a membership, and also that original contribution gave you an award. Now that's totality. So there is no point in we trying to go into totality for individual criteria. While there could be certain items that could be recorded, so but it is always a good idea that when you kind of present your case as if each and every criteria is a petition by itself. If you follow that, I think things are much more simpler, because that's what we tell people. So let's say, for example, your basic regulatory criteria are three requirements. So we always tell people that look at each one of the criteria and say that, look, this is what your criteria is. If you had to go only for one criteria, if you had to go, which criteria would it be, and make a petition like a petition. So we have seen some of the students in the program making beautiful petitions only as if the whole EB1A would depend on that. Then go for critical role. Oh, you have done an original contribution. You do an original contribution as if original contribution, everything would depend only on that. So kind of, and then create a summary out of it. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. So to kind of sum it up, you would say that mostly your petition really sets up with the whole cohesion of the narrative that you set for each individual criteria, and then kind of connect them all together in the end for the whole totality of the narrative.
Absolutely. I think that's a very beautifully you have put up, because that's the way and that's the reason. So going into totality individually would not make any sense actually. But yes, I mean, and another important aspect that I would say, because this is a very profound question actually, that when you talk of sustained impact, it is sustained is not a function of time. Temporal aspect is just one of the dimensions of sustained impact. The question is sometimes it's also required that you need a knowledge to kind of reach to a level of excellence actually here. Sometimes you need a very high degree of knowledge to attain that skill. Suppose, let's say, for example, you want to say that you are a rocket fuel expert, okay, and your rocket can take to Mars and come back. I mean, without refueling. Let's say that. Now, to reach that level of expertise itself would take ages actually. It is not a one day job. It's not that you go to even the best schools in MIT and you become a rocket science expert suddenly. So for that you need to have a certain degree of learning also. So sustained impact has three dimensions. One is the impact, that what work that it created. Second is the knowledge that it requires to do it. And third is the temporal, which is the time. So sustained doesn't mean time only. You can be, so this integrates your entire, just visualize that your even the knowledge that is required to attain to this, to reach out to this level of excellence is good for you. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what's next?
So our next question is about the salary category. And we have two questions here. So the first one is how much above the 90 percentile should the salary be? And two, if the salary is above the local 90 percentile based on the county, state, and three state, but below the 90 percentile national, could this qualify?
Okay, now let's understand, when it comes to your salary criteria category here. First of all, there is no mandate that it should be 90% at the first place actually. It's an assumption. We have seen people, I will not get into the quantum, but people even with 75th salary, or what traditionally what we call, because percentile is just one of the metrics to evaluate a salary. It could be the actual value, it could be any other parameter that you take, because the, remember one thing, the salary that we see today based on the SOC codes or anything are essentially meant for H1Bs, and general about the salary trends that people use actually is not necessarily meant for EB1A. It's just an informative list that is given. Now sometimes, let's say for example, a 25-year-old, I'm just making this up, a 25-year-old, okay, a master's graduate or 26-year-old master's graduate earning a 100,000 may be more than 200,000 earned by a 40-year-old. It means a lot, because it's also, one has to compare. So there are a lot of demographic factors are there are a lot of geographical factors are there, and there are socio-economic factors also have to take into account. So and here we are assuming that you're talking about a salary within the USA, but also if you're talking about a salary which is earned outside the USA, then also there is something called as a purchasing power parity also would come into play here actually. So still, trying to respond to the question, there is no such fixed number, however above or below it should be. 90th percentile, I can promise you, I've spoken to a lot of immigration lawyers. I've spoken to couple of USCIS officers also. 90th percentile is not a mandated requirement. But yes, it is always good to show, that becomes a good, because you have a good data point to prove it actually. So that way it is good. But if you can get some kind of a, but to validate what I'm saying, to if you kind of get some expert opinion from your, from a CPA or somebody who is an HR expert or a salary expert, that might be a good idea actually. I hope that answers. But is above 90, so I mean this question according to me becomes infructuous actually here, that salary is above the local 90th percent. So but still, if you want to use 90th percentile, and if it is there, let's say that, let me try to do it. 90th percentile should be good enough. And if it is above local, I think that's also good enough actually, because you could be at a location. I think there are certain areas or certain locations wherein the salary above 90th percentile, you may earn X amount, and that could be above 90th, but nationally, because at a national level, you consider New York, you consider San Francisco, and everything put together. But you could be based out of a location wherein this, where the whatever you are earning could be in the 90th percentile. So, from answering your question specifically, the answer that is second question is yes. So, And first question is anyway redundant according to me. It becomes infructuous. So that's what I would like to say. Yeah. Let's take next question, please.
Absolutely. The next question is from Anonymous as well. They said, in the category of judging the works of others, one, how many juries are needed to qualify? And then, second, one of the juries I participated in was an organization that was closed and they cannot sign a letter confirming my participation. I have detailed emails to prove participation. It was an online participation. Should this jury be included in the application or not?
Well, let us take the question, break it down as the person. How many juries are needed to qualify? You are part of that. I mean, there is no number, but yes, does it show that once or twice definitely would not make any sense? Remember one thing. I think a typically an extraordinary ability person. Let's understand, he or she would always be part of some community or an association. We even when we had a session with the USS officer, he said that what are the affiliations you are having actually. This is very important for them to know. And this establishes a very powerful affiliations. Oh, you are a truly who is an extraordinary person. He would always be invited as a guest to, undertake some judging initiatives. So from that perspective, it is very good. So numbers is not important. It has to be continuity of that actually. So there are people who would have judged even 500 to 7,000 entries also actually across 10, 15, 20 initiatives on a continuous basis. You may not get an award every time, but yes, being a part of judging initiative and being called for a speaking engagements, this speaks volumes about your expertise. So basically the idea is not okay, but if you are at a jury at a very high level event, I mean, just to hypothetically put a point, you have been a jury at a Nobel committee. I mean, I think that one is good enough. You have been jury at a Fields Medal. You have been jury at a top and international award. That is definitely a good enough. But if you are not there, I think it can be established only by virtue of continuity here actually. So that's what I would like to say this here. And one of the juries I participated in from an organization that was closed and they cannot sign the letter. Now, this is more akin to I think from an evidence standpoint. I have detailed emails. Yes, I think that should be good enough. And you could give a declaration, maybe somebody else who participated along with you, maybe an affidavit from them. That should be, I think, serve the purpose. I would say that actually. And yes, you can definitely include that. So wish you all the best for your application. Yeah. What's next?
Yeah, so our next question says, does it make any difference in approval or petition scrutiny if you do premium processing or not?
Well, answer to that is no. Actually, doesn't approval of a petition scrutiny does not make any difference actually. So we had checked up with the USCS officer also. So it doesn't make any difference. So it's absolutely fine. I mean, you can. It's a just it may speed up your application process itself. Like it just it's like there's a big queue and you are placing yourself in front of the queue. As simple as that. That's it. Okay. So what's next?
Absolutely. This next one is from Anonymous. They said, how will you help me define and document original contributions of major significance in my field?
Oh, I mean, it's a very big question, Mario. I mean, first of all, do you have an original contribution? So I don't. We do coach. I mean, we don't do a document for you. You have to do it actually. But the question is that what is that original contribution? Original contribution, I think, manifests itself from two places. One is that critical role that you would have done, and second is your scholarly article. So, what is the impact factor? You have to tell us all the things actually. So, otherwise, it's a very superfluous question actually here. That okay, how would you help me? The question is, if you do you have a patent? Do you have that? What is the impact factor? We have something called as Mudholkar mastery matrix. We have patent evaluation frameworks. We have models. There is something called as a Fisher's rule. We that is used to establish originality. So we create a very powerful, depending on what have you done so far. We create that argument, and that's how it is done actually. Rather than trying to do something very in a very superfluous manner. So you should have an original contribution. And remember, original contribution is to the impact to the field, not to the organization. I think most of the people confuse it here actually. So yes, I mean we can definitely help, and that's how this impact would be actually. So let's take the last question right now.
Absolutely. So our next question says, can you explain your framework for organizing evidence and developing a timeline that showcases sustained excellence in a candidate's field?
Well, my framework for organizing evidence, there is no framework for organizing evidence. It's about the framework for establishing you as an extraordinary. Evidences have to be done based on what you present to the USCIS actually here. So, for example, there are multiple layers of things that happen. Let us say when it comes to salary criteria, we talk about even a sustained salary that you have been getting over a period of time. If your salary has grown exponentially over a period, so it may not be 90th percentile each time or 80th percentile each time, then what is the compounded average growth rate of that? Then we would say that go for an expert opinion that would establish it. When it comes to critical role, then in critical role, what is the scope of authority, rare skill sets, what is the impact? Then what is the, we have something called as a critical role ratio. If you google about it, something called as Mudholkar's critical role ratio, you will get that actually. So you can use that as an evidence to do that. There is something called as a human resource capital model. We kind of help you to apply that. Then comes original contribution. Then I think I just in the previous question mentioned there is something called as Mudholkar Mastery Matrix. That it was published in Forbes also actually article about that. We would suggest you do that. Then there is another one is Fisher's rule that is being used to establish, but you need to have. Then there is a patent evaluation framework. Then when we talk about media, then we talk about there is something called as advertisement value equivalent. We kind of do that for you actually. So that's another aspect that happens. Then comes the next is for judging. What are the metrics? What are the, so there are a lot of kind of continued parameters to evaluate. Now, based on certain RFEs, what we have seen, or noise or denials, we have also seen that USCIS could potentially object to you getting a silver award or a bronze award instead of a gold award actually, then or a platinum award. Then how do you counter that? Then there are legal arguments to bind them together actually. So this is how we try to do this actually here. And by default, sustained asset is a function of three things. And it's a matter of the temporal and timeline is one part of it, but how much time it takes to become that person of excellence is second part. And the third dimension would be what is the impact of your each and every activity that you have done. So when you say, okay, this is a human resource value, but you have done X things to make things happen for yourself, that's how it would be. I hope that answers the question. And I think we will take up the rest of the questions next week. And it has been wonderful, kind of having, and these are very insightful questions today actually. And I think they all stem from the session what we had with the former USCIS officer. It has been really wonderful. And guys, if you have any questions, please write to us. We'll be more than happy to help you out. And if there you want to kind of join the program, reach out to Mario or Syria. Okay, our profiles are given in the link below, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So wishing you all the best, and in your EB1A journey. Bye bye. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any further questions or need personalized guidance, please reach out to us. We are here to help you every step of the way in your journey towards achieving your American dream. Let's connect and make it happen together.